Hello, my name is Georgina Marshall, and for this assignment too, I've decided to explore the artifact of telecommunication cables. I explored 3 different types of cables: Ethernet, phone, and fiber optic cables. The cable was first seen with the emergence of technology in the 1800s, and it evolved so that copper wires are insulated with PVC. Although PVC was invented in 1872, copper has been dated back to 4600 BC. Because copper is mined, it is important to note that it contributes to 0.21% of greenhouse gases. PVC, a plastic that is readily found and seen almost everywhere in all of my research, was seen to be one of the most harmful plastics. Looking of ways to transform these cables, I found that burning and melting of PVC is extremely damaging. Therefore, I chose to use only cold techniques. I also wanted to avoid plastic shaving, so instead of a drill, I used an awl to poke holes, and instead of adhesives, I used wrapping techniques with the copper wires. The phone cables were probably my favorite to work with, and I wanted to use delicate hand techniques to juxtapose the futuristic and fast connotations we have with technology with the slow, traditional hand methods. This led me to create my most successful swatch, the weave. I used my 30cm loom to tie the phone and Ethernet outer coating that had been sliced with a scalpel and stripped to reveal the red, green, blue, yellow, black, and white wires, which were very sticky from a glue. This weave surprised me because it really does just look like a woven fabric swatch. I think my color choice helps with the defamiliarization of the cables because we normally associate red, blue, and white or black with cables. It was also really fun, and the more I did, the more I wanted to do. The cylindrical shapes of the outer PVC creates a really interesting texture, and I was really surprised with how much this could just be a fine knit if you didn't know. It was definitely hard as the wires tangled so much and they don't behave as any normal yarn behaves. They also roll a lot, which is hard to then slice. So I decided to try a crochet with a 3mm crochet hook. I think this is a nice, despite not really knowing how to crochet and also having a lot of trouble with untangling the wires. Working with these cables is similar to trying to untangle Christmas lights. The wires do, however, make it easy when you drop a stitch, as they are so strong and they stay in place. I also made a small weave around my finger with the leftovers. So to identify these cables, there is a code stamped, which you're able to Google. So after figuring out this was an Ethernet cable, I then stripped it using a scalpel. This cable surprised me because they had an easy thread plastic throughout it, which held the wires in place. And then these cables were wrapped around each other to stop extra noise from entering. So following on from my main weave, I decided to try a more sculptural weave with the twisted wires. I think aspects of this worked because the twisted wires were stronger and therefore easier to sculpt, but the actual weaving wouldn't sit close together because the twists created so much texture. So I wanted to fully use the easy thread plastic strip without any adhesive or waste. And so I went with this rug style weaving, using the copper from the fiber optic as thread. So considering the plastic strip had a 3mm diameter, the weave ended up being about 20 centimeters in diameter. So with the leftover twisted wires, I continued trialing crochet. I was inspired by Alexandra Sieper, who uses recycled telephone wires in her work, which I think is really beautiful and inspired a lot of this assignment. I think her work really defamiliarizes the telephone wire. So I am really happy with the results of this particular cable. So the fiber optic cable it was a lot harder to work with as the plastic was so thick. So I really had to press down with my scalpel, and it was very, very taxing on my hands. There was, however, a lot of copper, which I thought was really exciting as I was planning to use copper to thread. And because I had previously used a speaker cable to find really fine copper and had found a lot of shavings from that, I decided not to strip down these small wires any further. So finding this big copper was really exciting. I deconstructed the black PVC coating, stabbed holes with my awl, and used the copper wiring as embroidery thread. Needle was thick enough, so I used force and accuracy to guide the copper through the holes. I tried running stitches and also blanket stitching. Probably using a drill would have made this easier as the holes closed so quickly, but I was committed to having no shavings. I also explored some wrapping and twisting to connect the little artifact pieces together. From here, I was trying different ways of braiding and twisting as forms of strengthening and defamiliarizing the cables from what they were. With this technique, I think that they look like fine jewelry wire. So with the leftover yellow PVC, I tested knotting, wrapping, and a sculpting sort of technique, which both ended up unexpected and quite cool. The knot would make such a statement piece, and the colours of the yellow and copper work so well together. So they are very unexpected, and I'm really happy with how these turned out. Overall, I made about 12 pieces, some better than others, some not particularly seen previously. So one or two of the crochets were approximately the same as the other crochets mentioned, just with either a slightly different material, so either just with the plain copper instead of the PVC coated wires, or I'd added the copper wire to the PVC coated wires, which I think is a really interesting way of combining the different elements of the cables together, and showing the complexity of these artifacts. I had a lot of fun with this artifact, and I'm really excited to move on with it. Thank you so much.